ourselves there. Let's talk with the real news. The reports, Matt, that Dodgers re-sign reliever Joe Kelly. Initially, Fabian Ardaya, who I believe ceded credit to Robert Murray, but Fabian Ardaya reported it was a 3-year contract. I believe that was a typo. We think it's going to be a 1-year deal, but just immediate reaction to the Dodgers reportedly coming to terms with reliever Joe Kelly.
Oh, man, a little bit of surprise and a little bit of, oh, that makes sense, just because obviously Joe Kelly is from, the Southern California area, still lives here. He enjoys pitching for the team. The fans have embraced him, and so it made sense in that point and from that standpoint. But like you and I, we were kind of preparing for tonight's show, looking through the bullpen, the Dodgers now find themselves in a bit of an interesting situation, and so there was both sides of me. Like I said, some surprise, some of like, okay, yeah, I expected him to be back.
Yeah, I remember when we talked through the qualifying offer decisions, team option decisions, Joe Kelly was one of the team options they had to decide on. And my prediction was exactly this. They would decline the team option and that he would come back. I feel like there's a comfort level there. I think Joe Kelly has gone other places and failed and then come back to LA multiple times and been much better here. So I think he knows that this is the right place for him. I think the Dodgers trust him. They trust him in big spots. They trust him in the postseason. They trust him in scenarios where they need him to get, 1 out in a jam or 5 or 6 outs even. Looking at the numbers, he's 35 now. He will be 36 midway through next season. So that's not a small number. And yet the velocity last year was basically a career high, over 99 miles an hour. It ticked up when he came to LA. 1.74 ERA in 10 innings for the Dodgers. His last 2 years with Los Angeles were both good seasons from an ERA perspective. Of course, one of those was shortened by injury. And that's kind of my biggest concern, Matt, with Kelly. He hasn't thrown more than 51 innings since 2018. It's a guy who's perpetually injured. When he's healthy and with the Dodgers, he has been effective, even if he was ineffective with the White Sox last year. But when he's healthy, he has been good. The issue for me, besides age and besides health, is what you mentioned. I was like, hey, good, Joe Kelly's back. And then I went and did the math on bullpen. So you get 8 relievers, basically. 5 starters, 8 relievers make up your 13-man pitching staff. Here are guys that the Dodgers have under contract next year. Yency Almonte is back. Caleb Ferguson, JP Fireeisen, who was really, really good before getting hurt. So he's not a type that's going to be like on the Phil Bickford role. He's believed to be a guy who's going to be back end of the bullpen type stuff. Gratterall, Phillips, Trinan, Joe Kelly, Vanasco, who they signed to a major league deal. That's 8 already. That does not include Ryan Yarbrough, who knows what his role is going to be, but he has no option years remaining. That does not include Alex Vesia, who can be optioned. It doesn't include a young guy like Kyle Hurt, who many people believe might be a future back end of the bullpen type guy. It does not include Michael Grove, Victor Gonzalez, who is out of options. So with Joe Kelly here, the bullpen feels already overcrowded, which when I do the math on that, I guess my biggest surprise, Matt, is that if the Dodgers kind of had one move to make in the bullpen, I'm a little surprised it was Joe Kelly and not Ryan Brazier or somebody like that.
Yeah, so part of me believes that there's definitely going to be some movement, whether it's DFAing guys or looking to include some of maybe a Victor Gonzalez type as part of a trade. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to belittle him or demean like his value, but like be kind of a throw-in piece, right? Not necessarily
there's no options,
right? Not necessarily a primary prospect, maybe going in a deal. The Yarbrough one, I know a lot of people were speculating, is he a non-tender candidate? And I guess when you look at the bullpen crunch, like maybe, but I think he also provided them with enough versatility and value that way that I didn't see them going that route. And so they didn't. They did tender him a contract. And so at least for now, he's going to be part of the roster. But yeah, I think we're going to look at, because I don't necessarily imagine that they're done with the bullpen. I would be shocked if there isn't interest in bringing, one of Ryan Brazier or Shelby Miller back.
Yeah.
If you have to pick between the two, I think you go Brazier.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be interesting, and kind of circle it back to Joe Kelly. Like you said, health is definitely a concern, and especially this year, he was on the IL 3 different times, and the last time with the Dodgers was because of I think it was either forearm, elbow. So sometimes it tends to be both. So it's just a matter of what the Dodgers sort of technically designate his IL stint as. But he missed a month basically from middle of August, I think it was, to middle of September. So there are some health concerns. The flip side is, we're discussing all this depth the Dodgers have in the bullpen. So, I mean, it could be, we've seen them take this approach with a lot of players of like, hey, like, okay, you're injured. Like, recover for 2 months. We're
Yeah.
fine. Like, we need you for October. And so obviously the preference is for Joe Kelly to stay healthy, but if he does run into any more elbow trouble or stuff like that, the Dodgers appear to be in a position where they could just say, hey, like, take your time, just get back for at some point in the season.
Yeah. To your point, if Kelly has truly signed, we're talking about 9 guys who have basically signed major league contracts or are back end of the bullpen guys. I mean, Yency Almonte just signed a $1.9 million contract and has no options remaining. So he's in the major league bullpen. Caleb Ferguson is the only lefty that I currently have in the bullpen. So he's definitely there. JP Fireeisen, again, has options. So he's maybe a candidate to be sent down, but he was one of the better relievers in baseball before they traded for him and then took him a full year to recover, which they kind of knew, but it tells you how highly they thought of him prior. Gratterall has options. He's not going to get sent down. Evan Phillips is the closer. Blake Trinan just signed a major league deal. Vanasco signed a major league deal. Joe Kelly signed a major league deal. Ryan Yarbrough signed a major league deal. That's already 9, and again, that's only 1 lefty in the entire bullpen. I guess 2 if you count Yarbrough, but that's my point. Like, it makes sense when people are like, hey, I hope they go sign Brazier. But when you just do the math and you look, it's like, whose spot is he taking? Because Victor Gonzalez, Michael Grove, like those aren't Alex Vesia even. Those aren't guys included in the 9, and they can really only hold 8. And so the Vanasco move looks even more confusing to me now. He signed a major league deal. I believe that means he can't be optioned unless I'm missing something dramatic there.
I think he still has 1 option year left. What the difference for him is because he signed a major league deal, he was added to the 40-man roster.
Got it.
Whereas had he been re-signed on a minor league deal, he obviously wouldn't have been added to the 40-man unless they called him up at some point.
Okay. Well, that would make sense. So then if you plug Yarbrough in instead of Vanasco, Almonte, Ferguson, Fireeisen, Gratterall, Phillips, Trinan, Kelly, and Yarbrough, I mean, there's 8. And again, if they go out and sign Ryan Brazier, I don't know who of those 8, potentially comes off of that list. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and I saw a question in here, Deuce, or not a question, a comment. Maybe we're going, no starters on the staff, 14 relievers. No, there was something, I thought somebody else was saying maybe they go with 14 pitchers. Maybe I misread it, but just another reminder, like Jeff said when we kind of started this discussion, MLB roster rules, the Dodgers can only have 13 pitchers until you get to September. Then you're allowed to have 1 more. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting. And hey, like you mentioned in the opening, it's kind of another reason to keep track of the Dodgers because there clearly are some dominoes that need to fall.
Yeah, it's interesting. And again, I would look at that, and I will say this: I think that bullpen's actually pretty good. Like, if you tell me Evan Phillips is the back end of your bullpen, you've got a version of Trinan that apparently they're comfortable enough to re-sign. Fireeisen coming back, Gratterall coming off the season he just came off of, Joe Kelly, Caleb Ferguson. I mean, that's a good group. I've said all along, I'm buying Yency Almonte's stock. Like, I think the Dodgers can get him back to where he needs to. And then you've got Ryan Yarbrough kind of as another lefty and eat up inning swingman. Like, that's a pretty good bullpen. And remember, this is one of the best bullpens in all of Major League Baseball at the end of last year. Yes, Brazier is gone. Shelby Miller is gone. You're replacing those guys with Blake Trinan and JP Fireeisen. That's a pretty good, swap out. So while it feels like more guys have left than have come back, I do think as we currently sit here, Matt, I actually feel pretty good about the Dodgers bullpen.
Yeah, I agree. I was open pretty much all throughout this past season on, the bullpen got off to a terrible start and it got to the point where, I basically said, hey, like, at what point do we need to sort of start maybe worrying that the past 4 or 5 months are going to be just who they are for the rest of this year? But like you mentioned, to their credit, they did turn things around by the end of the season. And so, yeah, there is reason to be optimistic. Yency Almonte, he's somebody who was more inconsistent than he really has been with the Dodgers. Yeah. And so if he kind of gets back to his first season with the team, then that's a boost for the bullpen moving forward. Blake Trinan, I think, is obviously a big wild card. If he A is healthy and if B is, anything close to the pitcher he once was, like, that's another, back end reliever that you can pair with Evan Phillips and figure out, who's your closer, who's your fireman. And so the pieces are definitely there. I think we just need to see kind of how it all comes together.
Yeah, I believe the stat was from July 1st on, the Dodgers bullpen was not only the best in baseball, it was like a half run better than everybody else. One other note, Brandon Gomes, Dodgers GM, did speak recently and said that both Fireisen and Blake Trinan are experiencing, quote, normal off seasons. So that sounds like they're expecting both of those guys to be ready. They obviously played it very cautiously as the season wore on, with both of those guys not bringing them back. So the hope is that, hey, just rest, recover, have a normal offseason, be ready to go in the spring, and we'll see how that one plays out. So there you go. Joe Kelly back with the Dodgers. I'm muted. Sorry.
Yeah,
We just
there
got
you
a Jim Bowden report about some Joe Kelly terms. So let's talk about this real quick. I'll throw this up here. This was the tweet. Joe Kelly deal with Dodgers, 1 year, $8 million, according to a club source. Off the top of my head, did he have a $10 million team option?
It was 9.5. So they
Okay.
declined that. They paid him the
Probably cost him
$1 million buyout. So they're saving 500,000.
Interesting. And now Bowden's reporting this. It's possible that they tack on a team option for a second year or something. That feels like the classic Dodgers move here would be to, it's a 1 year deal, but then it comes out that there's a team option. I mean, that would make me feel a little bit better, Matt, if it was a 1 year, $8 million deal and then a team option for like, I don't know, $6 million or something for the second year.
Yeah, either that or who just commented, Derek Nomo Splitter, like he said, the Dodgers need to save money for Ohtani. So every penny counts in these sweepstakes. So that 500,000 may be what gets the Dodgers their biggest offer that they need to for Ohtani.
There you go. It's possible that's what happened. But again, Jim Bowden with that. I do want to